Hey everyone, before we get started on a very exciting episode, please know that we are brought to you today by AudiophileuSA.com. With over 42,000 of the cleanest used records in stock, dig and find the deals at AudiophileuSA.com. We're also brought to you by Groove Washer, the best record cleaner that protects and prolongs your vinyl. Ask your record retailer for the Groove Washer by name and accept no substitutes. And with that, on with the show. Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 310 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And this week we have on the show with us legendary artist, engineer, producer, songwriter, and now performer, Mr. Alan Parsons. Now, you may know Alan from his incredible solo work, but did you know he also worked with the Beatles and Pink Floyd, as well as a ton of others? Today we talk to Alan about his incredible career, starting off at Abbey Road, working with the Fab Four, then engineering for Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, then on to tales from his solo career. We talk about it all today. All that great music, I, Robot, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, Turn of a Friendly Card, The Secret, Eye in the Sky, and guess what? Alan has a brand new album out this week, The Neverending Show, live from the Netherlands. He's playing all the hits. It's on streaming, it's on video, it's on Blu-ray, and of course, vinyl. So you can go to the streaming services yourself, load it up. You'll be able to enjoy a few tracks now, and of course, enjoy the rest when it all comes out on November 5th. That's Alan Parsons, The Neverending Show, and get your autographed vinyl copy at theneverendingshow.com. And hey, guess what? If you enjoy this episode, subscribe to our podcast, follow us, and enjoy over 300 other episodes and interviews with the likes of recording engineering wizard Bernie Grunman, Guy Pratt of Pink Floyd, Tom Scholes of Boston, rock photographer and Led Zeppelin record collector Ross Halfin, Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick, and literally hundreds more. Follow us on your podcast app and enjoy them all anytime. So that's enough of the upfronts. Let's get on to our conversation with the legend himself, Mr. Alan Parsons.
Hi there.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm good. You're somewhere down under, right?
I am. Somewhere. I'm not sure where anymore. It's all kind of looking the same these days.
And your name is Nate, I understand. Is that right?
That is. It is Nate.
All right. Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Alan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Vinyl Guide. We talk about records. We talk about audio. We're collecting nerds, and sometimes we'll go down these little rabbit holes trying to get these music facts. You're more than welcome to join us in the nerddom, or you could hold up your yellow card if we start getting too deep for you. How's that?
All right.
But I would imagine you would be a bit of an audio nerd. Is that fair?
Well, I'm an audio engineer. Does that make me by default an audio nerd?
I think so. Do you have strong opinions on, say, analog versus digital?
Not particularly. I'm still a great believer in songs and good music and good performance. I don't think because a recording is analog or because a recording is digital, it necessarily made it sell better because of each one of those things. I remember Jeff Emerick, the Beatles engineer, way back in the 70s, saying when Dolby noise reduction was, the big thing on cassettes and on multi-track studio recordings, he said Dolby never sold any extra records. Mm-hmm. No one bought records because they were Dolby.
But for example, if you hear the sonic qualities of, say, work that you've done on tape in the earlier part of your career, and things that you've done maybe more recently in Pro Tools, and convenience aside, do you have a preference of how you listen to music?
Really not. The thing about digital working on computers is it saves so much time. You can wind back from the end of the song to the beginning of the song in 0.3 seconds, and that used to be a long waiting game. Every time you played something, you'd have to wait for the tape to wind back, and then or go to the first verse. Where's the first verse? Oh, let me find it. And it really has speeded up the process. But has it speeded up the time that people spend in studios and the budgets that record companies give you to make a record? Probably not.
I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but with the analog process, and again, there's a lot more waiting to it. There's a lot more pausing, and perhaps that leads to more consideration, and also learning to live with maybe some mistakes that create the charm. Whereas with digital, maybe there's that temptation to try to make things so perfect that it pulls a little life out of the recording.
I agree with you totally. I don't think a couple of rough edges, an occasional flat note, ever really made the listener say, "I'm not buying this because there was a flat note in the second verse of Old and Wise or something or whatever."
Right.
But it has become a perfectionist medium, particularly studio recording, perhaps less so live recording. Although, of course, even on live recording, the opportunities are there to make everything perfect, everything in tune, everything in time, where, as we all know, on the night, it wasn't really that good.
Yeah. So I've following your career for many years, and me being a bit of an audio nerd, you've always been a bit of a hero of mine. You're actually an OBE now, is that right? Do I call you sir?
Thank you. I'm not a sir. I am an OBE, which is still two levels to get to a knighthood.
Okay.
The first one is the MBE, which is what the Beatles were famous for. But they've, of course, Ringo and Paul have since been knighted, which means going way up the ladder. But the basic levels are MBE, OBE, CBE, which is the next one, and then knighthood. But I'm so delighted to be OBE. I mean, it's a real thrill for me to have received that award. An incredible surprise when I first heard about it.
Well, look, well deserved. I mean, your career has been quite astounding, even from the beginning. As I understand it, as a young man, you heard Sgt Pepper, was so enamored by it, you applied for a role at Abbey Road Studios and was working there within a matter of weeks. Is that what happened there?
That's the short story. I mean, I'd already actually been working for EMI in a tape duplication plant on the west side of London, and but through that employment, I was one of the first to hear Pepper off the master tape, literally off the master tape.
Oh, so while you were duplicating, you were making copies, and you had a little headphone set there.
Far be it for me to say that I would have ever considered making illicit copies of the album, but no, I really didn't. It was more than my job was worth. But I heard it then, and I said, "I'm going to try and get a job at Abbey Road." And it was, thankfully, an associated department of EMI Records at that time. So all I had to do was just write and say, "Hey, I work at this department," which was called at the time Tape Records. And they granted me an interview, and it was successful, and they granted me an employment.
So you had these tape skills initially, and so those transferred from duplication to the studio. What were some of the early sessions that you sat in on?
I really was totally green. I had no idea what went on in studios. Having spent quite a bit of time listening to finished products, but upon the employment at Abbey Road, it was just a case of being promoted through the ranks. Every new boy at Abbey Road was shoved into the tape library for a matter of a few weeks, some for a few months. And I'm pleased to say my experience in the tape library was probably only 2 or 3 weeks. And then I was sent down literally to be a fly on the wall, watch sessions happening. And one of the very first sessions that I sat in on was a band called The Gods. Mm-hmm. If you look them up, you'll see that Ken Hensley was the keyboard player with that band, The Gods, and then he later became the guitar player with Uriah Heep. So he was essentially the first celebrity I ever worked with.
And you were doing the function of a tape op, right?
Well,
running the tape machine.
Originally, it was like I said, fly on the wall, learning, watching, asking questions. But that period was actually very short-lived, because within literally 3 months of joining Abbey Road, I was offered the job to go down to Apple and help out on the Beatles sessions for Let It Be at the Apple studio.
Was that Twickenham, or is there?
I did not do Twickenham. That was. I don't think he and I got particularly involved in Twickenham, but very much so we were involved. The we being Abbey Road Studios were very much involved in the studio they had in Savile Row in London, and then of course ultimately, just a couple of days after I was involved down there, we put the Rooftop session together.
Okay, so that was like within your first couple of weeks of joining. All of a sudden, you're watching the Beatles live. And
like I said, I joined Abbey Road the previous October, and then in January they sent me down and said, "Would you like to go and help?" Not would you like. You have been assigned to go down to to Apple Studios to help out with the Beatles. Is that okay with you? And I went, let me give that consideration. And I said, yes, I think I will probably be available to do that.
So the Rooftop concert happened. How much in advance did you guys know what was going to happen, what the plan was for the Rooftop concert?
There was no plan until literally the day before, as I remember. My best memory, and others have said there's another memory that it was John Lennon who made the suggestion. My memory is that Paul said, "Let's set up a stage on the roof, and we'll go and play these songs." And literally, it can't have been the next day. It must have been the next day, the day after, because we needed a day to run the cables up to the roof and just make sure that there was communication between the roof and the control room in the basement. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was there helping out, helping run cables up the stairwell, up onto the roof. And the saddest thing about the whole thing is there are only 2 very fuzzy photographs of me showing that I was there.
Well, luckily you were wearing an orange shirt, so you kind of
you know about it. You know about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Orange shirt, black tie. Yes.
So, were you there, like, ready in case something happened? In case Ringo hit a mic and it fell over, that was your job to run out and kind of prop it back up?
That was it. Yes, I was the only recording engineer's assistant that was there to do any such thing. But hey, I was there. I watched it. It was amazing. And
yeah,
did
they have a sound check? Like one of you up on the kick drum?
Not as such. I think Glyn Johns, who was the engineer, I think he probably had people strum guitars, and there was a Kevin, their chief roadie. He probably strummed guitars and slapped drums to make sure that everything was working. But as I remember, the very first take, the very first thing that they played, it was captured, and it was fine.
So I understand, being an employee of Abbey Road, you started sitting in and even tape-opping several sessions, essentially being the engineer in charge of the tape machine. Is that the role?
That was it. I mean, it's not a particularly demanding job. I mean, you just have to run the tape, press record, make sure you don't make sure you tell the engineer that you're about to run out of tape if it's a continuous thing. That was really it. Just and marking the box with what happened. What songs were played, what at what time of day, at what time on the clock of the tape machine. Incredibly, the tape machines of the day did not have very accurate timing devices. You really couldn't tell within even a minute of how much tape you had left.
Do you have any horror stories where you accidentally wiped out a take?
Only in later years, and I won't share that with you.
No? There wasn't some solo that was supposed to be on Dark Side of the Moon that's no longer there?
Nothing on the Beatles, but like I said, in later years, there were a few horror stories, and you have to go to my my educational series, The Art and Science of Sound Recording, to read about that.
Okay.
It had a happy ending, so it wasn't a complete disaster.
So being in that environment, soaking in all those lessons and the musicianship, were you a musician going into this career?
I strangely, just before I got the job at Abbey Road, I had been playing in a blues band and having not so much a reasonable amount of success, but a reasonable amount of fulfillment. But it became clear when I'd spent like a week or two at Abbey Road that I had to tell the guys in the band, this is my new gig. I'm sorry, I can't agree to be a part of this band anymore. I'm going to become a recording engineer, hopefully a record producer at the end of the day. But yes, it was very much a decision I had to make, whether to be a musician or become an engineer.
Did you find as you were doing those sessions early on, you missed being a musician? You missed having that contribution?
No, because I was surrounded by, suddenly I was surrounded by the greatest musicians on the planet, which was great. And I remember occasionally finding myself with session players, people who only did sessions, guitar players and bass players and so on, occasionally going up to them. Why did you choose that chord when you could have done this chord? And they kind of went, really? Do we need to talk to this boy about what we do? And I just soon learned that it was best to keep your mouth shut,
right, in
such situations. But having said that, once I got into engineering and being the fully fledged engineer on sessions, I was totally incapable of keeping my mouth shut. I would say, second string is out of tune, or wouldn't it be better if he played through an amp rather than DI or whatever, all kinds of stuff like that.
Those are the judgments that take you from being an engineer more to production. Is that fair?
Yes, but it's not the engineer's job to offer production ideas unless he's asked. So I think I took a risk. I took a risk being critical of anything on a session as engineers, whereas the engineer was beholden to whatever the producer wanted. So, but like I said, I was incapable of keeping my mouth shut sometimes.
To me, it's amazing that you started in the studio around 1967, I think, about around that year, and then within 8-9 years, you are creating the album that became Tales of Mystery and Imagination. In that period of time, in that short space, you became one of the greatest sonic influencers of the 20th century, being able to capture the sound in a way that people still enjoy to this day. What do you credit your growth in that area to?
A really good concept album, a really good set of songs, a really good band, and a band that understood recording technology at least as well as I did. I'm talking about Pink Floyd. I'm talking about Dark Side of the Moon. So yeah, it was a privilege to work on the record. I was just pleased that on occasion, I could make a suggestion or have a piece of input that worked in the context of what we were doing collectively. We were a team. I mean, Pink Floyd and I on Dark Side of the Moon were, without question, a team of people that worked really well together. Mm-hmm. And I had no aspirations towards being given credit for anything. I just told them what I thought was right and made suggestions. And for example, giving Claire Torrey a call, say, I've got this great female singer, give her a try. If I hadn't done that, the Great Gig in the Sky would not have been the same thing. It would have been something else.
Were there originally lyrics for Great Gig in the Sky, or was it all just riffing, Claire Torrey riffing?
No, there were never any lyrics. And strangely, the band, none of the band really knew what to expect of Claire when she went into singing.
Was there a lot of room while recording Dark Side of the Moon for improvisation or happy accidents, or was it pretty well mapped out where they wanted to go with each song?
I think the songs were pretty well written, and they had already performed them in various concerts as a piece called Eclipse. That was the original title of Dark Side of the Moon. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was the compositions were there, but the presentation was what I was involved with, and of course the recording and sounds and so on.
Okay, so even a shorter time frame. You started at Abbey Road around 67, and by 71, 72, you were running the board or the mics and in charge of much of the sonic landscape of what became the biggest album in history. In that 5 years, you had this concentrated learning that enabled you to do that. To me, that's amazing. That's,
it was a quick rise up the ladder, I have to say. Yeah.
How was working with Pink Floyd on Dark Side different? I think you were also in the Adam Hart Mother sessions. Is that true?
They asked me to mix it. The engineer of the album, Peter Bown, was called in to do other things and was not available to do the mixes which they booked. And they suggested that maybe I could be because I knew all the tapes, I knew all the compositions, I knew all the tracks, and they let me loose on it. And presumably I did a good job. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked me to start doing the Dark Side sessions a few months ago.
Would you get involved in things like record mastering? For example, I know on Adam Hart Mother, I think the end of side B, Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, has that endless loop at the end of the record in the run out groove, that drop bloop bloop bloop. Were you involved in that at all?
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, I gotta tell you about the Groove Washer. Not because I have to, but because I want to. The Groove Washer is the best record cleaner you can get. And if you have a vinyl collection, you need to keep it clean. Dirt and dust lead to groove wear, which affects the sound and value of your record collection. Use the Groove Washer to clean before each play, and your ears and future pocketbook will thank you. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store, or go direct to groovewasher.com and use promo code VinylGuide10 at checkout. Groove Washer is a great holiday gift. Why not send one to a friend? groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. Do it now. And all record nerds want to hear about AudiofileUSA.com, the family-owned and operated online record shop that's been in business over 30 trustworthy years. AudiofileUSA.com only sells excellent and near-mint vinyl records, only in tip-top quality for your turntable. And with over 42,000 titles, you're sure to find a bunch on your want list at AudiofileUSA.com. Audiophile vinyl is not just for the elite. Everyone can enjoy the gold standard of sound at AudiofileUSA.com. Search by title, genre, label, dig and find the deals at AudiofileUSA.com, home of the Holy Grails.
Now we return to the program already in progress.
No limits.
Would you get involved in things like record mastering? For example, I know it on Atom Heart Mother, I think the end of side B, Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, has that endless loop at the end of the record in the run out groove, that drop bloop bloop bloop. It was. Were you involved in that at all?
I think actually that was my idea.
Oh yeah,
I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, vinyl was vinyl, and now today is computers. Yeah.
Well, I still have that original UK vinyl pressing, and I think that's the only copy that has that loop. Would you get involved in the actual mastering of the record, the lacquering and everything?
It was a funny situation. The mastering engineers at Abbey Road would feel very intimidated if any engineer walked into their room and said, "I'd like you to do this," or "Could you do a bit of that?" They just did their job as they felt fit, and would be, like I said, intimidated if anybody walked into their room and said, "I don't like what you're doing," or "I suggest this or suggest that." And I was a victim of that. I distinctly remember some of the mastering sessions that encompassed my work. So just remember this guy, this mastering. I will not be supervised. I remember that so distinctly. I will not be supervised. So, okay, thank you. Let's see. But yeah, hey, he did a good job. So,
okay. So, launching into what became the Alan Parsons Project, was there ever a name for the band thought of, or was it always from day one the Alan Parsons Project? It was always going to be the Alan Parsons Project.
Absolutely not. No, it was. I considered it to be various artists, with me being a line of small print at the bottom of the cover saying "produced by Alan Parsons."
Right. You'd have the same billing as, say, Jeff Emmerich or George Martin.
Yeah, but it was clear that there was no artist other than myself, Eric, and the people that we assembled to make the record with. The Alan Parsons Project was coined at the record company office of 20th Century Records in Los Angeles soon before the release of the record. It was known as the Alan Parsons Project because that's what they called it. Hey, how's the Alan Parsons Project coming on? Oh, it's coming on really well. Yeah. And that was the identity of the first album until it became the name of the artist.
Right. Did you have any artist names bandied about, or band names, or anything bandied about?
Not at all. The star of the show was Edgar Allan Poe. It was
right.
It was Tales of Mystery and Imagination, Edgar Allan Poe, produced by Alan Parsons. That's what I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm. I was introduced to this album after the 1987 mix with Orson Welles in it, but Orson Welles wasn't part of the original recordings. How did those recordings come about?
Orson Welles had been commissioned back in the 76 release period, but the album itself was already in manufacturing. So he did this amazing job on introducing the record and this wonderful dialogue in the intermission period. but we were unable to include it on the original release. But we were able to include it on the release, the promotional release, which we did at Griffith Park Observatory in Los Angeles, the planetarium. So we did a big promotional exercise there, and those guys did hear Orson Welles doing his stuff, but it sadly was not on the original release until the 1987 remix. But I totally believe that Orson Welles' contribution is so much part of the album now, and I was terribly disappointed that his voice could not be used on the original release version in 76, whenever it was.
Not too long after the album was released, I think within a couple of years, it was reissued, but with a different cover. Any idea why that happened?
No, and I hated it. It was the most horrible artwork. Whereas the original release had a really classy graphic cover designed by Storm Thorgerson, who did all the Pink Floyd covers and everything else. But that re-release with that cartoon image of me as I think of it is horrible, and I have no time for it. I hesitate to sign it when fans ask me to autograph it. So, oh no, not this version. Yeah.
So that all happened somewhere. You just saw a copy of it at some point and was horrified.
Yep. Yeah. No forewarning at all.
I didn't realize Hipgnosis did Tales of Mystery and Imagination. I know they did a bunch of other ones. What was your relationship like with Storm and team?
Oh, we had a great relationship. I mean, Storm and I first met, of course, in Pink Floyd days. He showed up with the design that would become the iconic artwork for Dark Side of the Moon during a recording session during the time we were recording it.
Oh.
And we got to know each other, and right from the beginning, I knew that Storm was going to be the first choice to do our album covers for the project. Mm-hmm. And indeed he did. He did pretty much everything, all the albums, bar one.
So you were one of the first people on Earth to be able to see the cover of Dark Side of the Moon.
To see a draft version of it, yes.
Okay.
But it was unanimous. All the bands said that's the one. The Pyramid and the Prism. Everybody said yes, that's it. And there were other choices. I don't remember what the other choices were, but that's what Storm did. He always came in with 4, 5, 6 choices. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And everybody went the Prism and the Rainbow. Yeah.
Wow. I remember when I was traveling as a younger band, I went to Europe, and I found myself in Charles de Gaulle Airport on a conveyor belt. And then all of a sudden I noticed I was in the cover of iRobot.
Right. Yeah, a few people have said that. I apologize.
No, it was a delight.
That was totally Storm's idea.
While doing the Alan Parsons Project and bringing in different musicians to play different roles and parts, did you ever consider or make overages to bring in one of the Beatles or anyone from Floyd, people you'd worked with in the past?
Did I consider bringing in one of the Beatles? Hey, Paul, could you come and do a session for us? That would not have happened. But over the years, I had established a really good arsenal of great musicians, and they're still there to this day. I mean, even over here, I'm able to call upon an amazing array of incredibly talented musicians. Mm-hmm. I have to say, I worked with the band from Heaven just about a month ago. Mm-hmm. It was Nathan East on bass. He played with Clapton and everybody else.
Stevie Wonder, yeah.
Everybody. Greg Phillinganes played with Michael Jackson and goodness knows. Steve Ferrone, who I had worked on at Abbey Road just before I left to come here to the States, and an incredible guitarist called Michael Thompson. Just incredible. I mean, it's just so amazing that in this day and age, and at my age, I can still call upon these incredible musicians and work with them. It's so great that I have that opportunity to work with these incredible talents. And that's what keeps me going, honestly, it really is.
Yeah, well, look, frankly, that doesn't surprise me that much that people would want to work with someone like yourself who knows how to imprint audio and produce music the way that you have over the years. I would think it would be a badge of honor for most musicians to be able to contribute in some way.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment, but it takes a meeting or an introduction to make it happen as well. You have to be able to get on with people. And
sure.
Hey, I would love to work with Eric Clapton, but I've yet to meet him. Okay, I've never met Eric Clapton, but if I had met him, I would book him and say, "Hey, can you come and do a session with me?"
Okay. Well, let me just give you this advice: if you do work with Eric Clapton, wear a mask.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
So
that's a big issue right now, right? Yeah.
It is. All right. So let's talk about the new live album, because I saw this video online of the band playing live, playing games people play, and I got so excited because there's so much energy going on in this track, and I haven't heard the rest of the album. I can only imagine that it's that level of energy or even greater. All the hits, the Neverending show live. But playing live is not something that you did, especially in the early part of your career. Did you want to play live, or did you just want to be a studio rat?
It was definitely being a studio rat until Eric and I parted company. Eric Orson and I, we parted company with an album which became known as Freudiana. It was not the Alan Parsons Project; it was something else, and it became a stage musical. And Eric had a huge falling out with the producer of that musical, and I was left in the lurch. I could not receive royalties. I could not receive any. I could not work with Eric any further. So it became a really difficult situation, and I just decided to go ahead on my own and make a record with some of the past session musicians: Stuart Elliott, Ian Bernstein, Andrew Powell, the orchestral arranger, who did a lot of keyboard work as well. So we made an album at a fairly simple studio that existed in my house at Sussex at the time, and that's when it all started. We made a record, and then we said, "Hey, how about forming a live band and going out and doing gigs?" And that's where it all started. I had not played live on any one occasion until that happened, until that first album was done.
And you were approximately how old then?
Oh, old? Oh, I can give you the year. I can't tell you how old I was.
Yeah, tell me the year. What was the year?
That would have been about 94, 93, 94.
Okay. All right. So you're in your 30s, 40s, maybe?
You're too kind.
And that's a big career change. That's a big change to then want to be traveling around the world and living that lifestyle, yeah?
Okay, in 1998, I would have been 40. No, sorry. I'm telling you, I'd have been 50.
Oh, okay. I was being kind. So that's a big change to now adjust to life on the road, at least partially. Was the transition all right for you? Did you
It
find it
really didn't
tedious?
feel like it didn't really feel like being on the road. We took a fairly luxurious view about touring. We flew everywhere. We stayed at really nice hotels, and of course, because of that, we lost absolute fortunes. I mean, it was the worst thing we could ever have done to fly first class, to stay at the best hotels, and it was a complete disaster financially, but it was fun, and I enjoyed the experience of playing live. I was kind of surprised myself. The first night of the tour in Germany, I remember we got to the end of the first song, and then the audience applauded, and I went, "Holy shit, they like this stuff," and it was amazing. And I've been feeding off that same basic sentiment ever since.
I guess that must be strange for you, because that's the first time you've heard you've heard a live response from a group from your music. It's always just segged into the next track. That is quite interesting. So now, with this Neverending show live in the Netherlands, what makes the current set special? Why a live album now?
The live show has always been about the hits, the most popular songs, and of course, along with that, we have to promote new material, and we did promote the latest album released a couple of years ago called The Secret. But and there will, on the upcoming release, there will be a couple of songs from The Secret as well. But it's really all about, like I said, it's about the hits. That's what the audience wants to hear. We're doing 2 live releases. We're doing one recorded in Utrecht in Holland, and that includes a new studio recording of a single with my son-in-law Jordan Huffman singing the lead vocal. That will be out literally in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And there'll be another video recorded with full orchestra in Tel Aviv around the same period, but that'll be released in the early part of next year.
Okay. Now, I want to remind folks that they can pick up a copy of the Neverending show live in the Netherlands. There's a 2 CD and DVD set. There's a Blu-ray available, but perhaps even most important to this group here that I'm talking to, LPs, several different vinyl variants, a 3 LP set in black, crystal, and blue transparent. That's a Frontiers web store exclusive. Of course, you can go to alanparsons.com to be able to find out where you can order one, but also go to YouTube and check out the live videos. Again, right now there's a teaser for Games People Play. Fantastic video. There may be more coming up, but this looks like a really special release. As Alan just said, the hits are there, but actually being able to watch it is an experience that I've never had. I've listened to Alan Parsons music for pretty much most of my life, and now I get a visual with it as well. And these musicians are on point. So again, the Neverending show live in the Netherlands, available from alanparsons.com or from all independent record dealers.
The album is called collectively with the live show and the single video. It's called The Neverending Show. Hopefully soon you can Google Alan Parsons, The Neverending Show, and you'll find it. So I'm hoping people will do that.
Perfect. Okay, Alan, before I let you go, I got a couple of listener questions. Okay? A couple listener questions. Now, this one is from a guy, Mr. Pinky. Now, Mr. Pinky, just so you know, he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for owning the most copies of Dark Side of the Moon.
How does he know that he is? But I mean, I accept it, but how does he know that he is?
Apparently, they gave him some sort of plaque, some sort of acknowledgement. Well, he's got 495. I'm sure the next week he got 496. I don't think they upgraded a plaque or anything for that. But anyway, suffice to say, Mr. Pinky is a vinyl and Pink Floyd maniac. His question, Which song from Dark Side of the Moon was the most difficult to mix?
Most difficult to mix. I would say the Lunatic song, the final song.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember what it's called on the album. We always referred to it as the Lunatic song. It was the difficulty of always increasing the dynamic, letting it build, and of course, the backing vocals, Joyce Troy's wailing voice really helped with that. But you had to make a choice about whether that would be the loudest point of the album or whether it would be the most exciting point of the album. We had to bounce between that. But that's an interesting question, and I appreciate it. Thank you. The fact that this person owns more copies of Dark Side of the Moon, I find it extraordinary that I can get barely through a week without switching on the radio and hearing something from Dark Side of the Moon, which is okay.
Yeah,
but I've got to the stage where I will probably button out and play something else. But having said that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very excited if the prospect would arrive of mixing it in Dolby Atmos.
Well, and this is actually leads into another question. Darren from Australia, the 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon is coming up. Do you know, or would you be involved in any sort of remixing or activities around that milestone?
Don't ask me, ask Pink Floyd. I have no general conversations with Pink Floyd, any member of Pink Floyd or their office on a day-to-day basis. So I would be pleased if I could be involved in that event, but as far as I know, so far, no involvement.
Now, have you mixed many Alan Parsons Project albums into Atmos format?
No. I only in 5.1 surround, only in surround format. In fact, I won a Grammy for the surround remix of 5.1, so-called immersive remix of Eye in the Sky. The Grammy category for immersive sound has skipped a year because the judges were unable to assemble in a room to judge it because of COVID. So,
okay. So in a way, you're winner second year in a row.
Well, we'll see.
Okay. Final question from Chuck Boyd, Roseville, California. The Money tape loop. Did you cut that tape loop, and did you have to keep it to time? Was that a tricky thing to do?
We assembled a version of the loop, perhaps an hour or 2 hours before the final version, and it became clear that every sound on the loop needed to last absolutely exactly the same amount of time. So the only way of doing that was to take the sound, mark the transient of it, and then measure an exact length of tape with a ruler, like 7 inches and 3/8 or whatever it was, and then make sure that every successive sound was also 7 3/8 inches. And that's what we ended up with. It was extremely unrhythmic, and until we made the necessity to make each sound last exactly the same amount of time. And the other curious thing, or what some people don't realize, it's not a 4/4 sequence, it's a 7/4 sequence. It's in 7 time. And one day I'm going to mix it so that the 7 sounds will go right around the room without jumping back to to one of the corners, which it has to do because 7 doesn't go into 4.
Right. Okay. So it'll just keep the sequence going.
It'll keep going all the way around the room. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you miss those days of cutting up tape?
In a way, yeah. I always enjoyed cutting tape. There was a British DJ called Kenny Everett who was on a pirate radio. You may not know about the pirate radio in the UK.
Yeah,
but there were various pirate radio ships offshore broadcasting wonderful pop music to the UK. And Kenny Everett was one of those guys, and he used to present what he called Beatles quickies, which were Beatles songs hacked to be as short as they possibly could be. So you would hear the intro, you would hear a verse and a chorus, and then it would end, or it would fade, or it was absolutely brilliant. And I spent a lot of time just doing the same thing myself, just enjoying cutting up Beatles songs, making them last, 3 minutes less in time than they were intended for. I recommend it to all recording engineers. It's a great exercise in editing. Cut Beatles songs down to the shortest possible time you can make them.
The bare minimum. Any track that you recommend people start with?
I think Hard Day's Night is a really good one. Yeah. It's been a hard day. When I get home to you, you feel all right. No, I feel all right. Ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding. And it's over in like 35, 40 seconds, right?
You know what trips me out is mashups. Do you listen to many mashups where they take like Black Sabbath and Celine Dion and kind of make it work?
There are a number of mashups that I have been directly involved with, but I'm not allowed to talk about them.
Okay. Well, before we open that door, I just want to say, Alan, thank you so much for coming on the Vinyl Guide and sharing those stories with us here and allowing us to nerd out a bit here on audio. Much appreciated. It's been an absolute honor to have you on the show.
You're most welcome.
All right, there we go. Mr. Alan Parsons, OBE. Much respect. Thank you, Alan, so much for coming on the Vinyl Guide. Again, everyone, check out the Neverending Show live in the Netherlands. Alan Parsons' brand new album out November 5th. You could set it up on your streaming services to listen to a few tracks now and then get the album when it comes out on November 5th. And of course, you can go to theneverendingshow.com. There they have vinyl, Blu-rays, all sorts of things that you can order and have shipped directly to you. That's Alan Parsons, theneverendingshow.com. Go to it. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, did you know you could help support this podcast by going to patreon.com/Vinyl Guide? Of course, if you go up there and help support this show, that's $5 or $10 a month or whatever you could afford. Of course, you get these episodes early. We give extended interviews, video versions of these interviews, secret episodes, lots more up there. Plus, you get the warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart of helping support this podcast. And that's a huge solid for your buddy Nate here. So please consider going to patreon.com/Vinyl Guide and becoming a supporter of the show. And thanks in advance for your support. We'll be back shortly with the brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.